Alrighty, so today is definitely a date that every MLS fans, including myself, has been waiting for a very long time before the season begins. Today is officially the day where the schedule has released. And I gotta say, I was kind of surprised the fact that, the schedule is released this early, considering in previous year the schedule doesn't release until January. And with the way that, there was a lot of question about how the schedule is gonna look, especially with the way that they're gonna have to navigate potential break during the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup that's going to be happening in June, and also whether or not if there is going to be another month-long break in the Leeds Cup. I was kind of surprised that they figure all that out. And again, they usually don't release a schedule until January, and usually they release the home opener around this time for every single team. But it feels like MLS this season said, "No, we're just gonna decided to give every MLS fans a little early Christmas present and basically release the schedule and a chance for all you fans to see which team you're going to be playing throughout the season, and then of course for the traveling supporter, maybe already start planning which away trip that you're going to be going throughout the season as well. Now that being said, this season will be opening on February 22nd, and that the first game of the season is once again going to be involving an Inter Miami game. Now, unlike last year where Inter Miami kick off the season against Real Salt Lake on a Wednesday, which I have they decided to do that, considering the whole Messi hype and stuff like that. With him being in his first full season along with his friends, but it was kind of weird to see the season kick off on a Wednesday as well. I don't think any league would have their season opener kick off in the middle of the week, though. This time, they of course are going to be the first one to play, but they're going to be playing on Saturday. They'll be the first team to do so. It's a matinee game as well, as they be taking on NYCFC as the first game of the season. But the most important thing, I think, when I look at the schedule throughout the season, and I flip through the schedule as well. I didn't just look at my team in terms of who they're going to be playing this season, but I actually flipped through the entire schedule. And one thing I noticed is that there's definitely more variety of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday game this season, and most specifically, in terms of the Saturday window, it seems like for most week there's these two matinee game that is going to happen, followed by your typical mosh pits in terms of games between 7:30 p.m. Eastern all the way to midnight 30 a.m. Eastern time as part of Apple TV and the MLS 360 deal of having all those games taking place at the same time. And there's also more Sunday game as well compared to previous year. And this is definitely great news. Consider for these last couple of years, MLS fans has been begging for MLS and Apple TV to spread out the games a lot. And I do think that when I look at the current schedule, it is still not perfect when it comes to spreading out games. I would love that they would spread out a little bit more games than they currently have, but it's definitely more than what we've seen in previous time, and especially in terms of some match week, where we're going to have Friday night game as well. I always wish that they brought back Friday night game, especially I remember a couple years back when we had 2DN, or it was used to be called Univision, decided to have Venice the football, which is the Friday night kind of game. They usually have a showcase Friday night game every single Friday. I wish they can bring this back as well, and it seems like they're kind of doing the same thing, except for some of those Friday games. There's going to be some weeks that there's going to be multiple Friday game as well, and yeah, I just think that this is something that it's definitely good for the league because again, I don't think anyone would like to see when the when the kickoff time is right around 7:30 p.m. It's not really a friendly time when it comes to having families attending these games as well. And when you have these kind of more of these day games and a chance, especially for some of these team based out in the East Coast, I mean, you're not going to be playing night games around February and March. That would be an insane kind of thing to do. So to have these kind of game taking place around the daytime as well. I think it will definitely draw a little bit more friendly crowd compared to when it's at nighttime. Because I remember when the first season of Apple TV was released, and they pretty much play all night game even in the month of March for those East Coast team and those cold winter city team. Yeah, the attendance was really bad, and I don't blame the fact the attendance was bad because nobody's gonna attend a game when it's like 30 degrees outside on a cold February or even March evening. Now, I was also like to say that I want to congratulate Minnesota, Houston, and the San Jose Earthquakes of winning the Messi and Friends sweepstake of a Western Conference team hosting Inter Miami. So I talked a little bit about this, the fact that there's going to be three Western Conference team that is going to be very lucky to basically host Inter Miami, and certainly not only fans are very excited whether their team to do so, but I'm pretty sure the front office of all these Western Conference teams was hoping that that is the case because that's where the moolah of course, happen. And of course, like I said, Minnesota, Houston Dynamo, and the San Jose Earthquakes front office are probably very happy the fact that they get the chance to do so. Though I gotta say, I was not expecting both of the team I root for to get to play against Inter Miami, and especially at home as well. I mean, I was hoping one of those teams was gonna do so. I mean, for me, I was thinking that maybe the Quakes will have a chance to do so because I think it would be great to see the league decided to have have a big name player like Messi and his friends to come to the Bay Area, an area that is definitely rich in the soccer culture, and indeed that is the case. I was not expecting about Minnesota was going to be that team as well. I didn't think that that was going to happen. I mean, Allianz Field was definitely amazing, but I would have never in my wildest dream would think that Allianz Field would be hosting Messi and friends and hosting Inter Miami. And there's no doubt I am definitely going to go to that game. That game is going to be on May 10th if I'm not mistaken. It's also a matinee game as well. It's an afternoon kickoff, so I expect not only Allianz Field is going to be packed to the rafter for the game. I mean, it's always packed to the rafter, but this one is definitely gonna be more of that. And I also appreciate the fact that Minnesota decided that, well, as of now, they said that the game is gonna be at Allianz Field. I don't know if they're gonna change that in the future. Obviously, there's two bigger stadium at Allianz Field that Minnesota could host Messi and friends. They could go back to where they used to play before Allianz Field was built, and I think that stadium, I think it's called Huntington Bank Field, which is it's kind of interesting that that's actually the same name stadium as the Cleveland Browns basically play. That's the stadium that the Minnesota Golden Gophers play, and that's also the stadium that Minnesota played in their first two seasons before Allianz Field was built. And then there's also talk of the fact that they could play that at US Bank Stadium where the Vikings play, which I mean I don't know if that's an ideal location considering it is turf as well. I mean it is definitely bigger than the two other stadium I mentioned, but there's really not a lot of soccer event that has host at US Bank Stadium. I think most likely they could either choose Allianz or just Minnesota decide to go back to their old home and host a special show event. But ideally, I would love to see this played at Allianz, even if the price is going to be absolutely expensive to attend. In terms of Houston itself, most likely I think this is going to be at NRG Stadium, and we seen before Inter Miami have played in Houston before. I remember when who they were playing. I think they were playing against Tigres. That game was actually at NRG Field. I have a feeling it's going to be the same case as well. I mean, not saying that Shell Energy Stadium cannot host this game, but I think the Dynamo will rather host this big game in a 70,000 plus stadium as well. And then for the Quakes itself, I've mentioned before how if the Quakes ever play against Inter Miami, I'm very interested to see whether they decided to move the game to Levi's. Now, speaking of Levi's itself, the Quakes will once again play at Levi's against LAFC, but this time it's actually going to be moved to September, which is kind of odd considering that I think the May Day would be perfect, especially on the Cinco de Mayo day. I think having that Cinco de Mayo day, and especially the theme of that night is Mexican Heritage Night. I would think that it would have fit that at that point compared to being on September. And you also wonder, is there going to be conflict when it comes to the Quakes playing there and also the Niners playing there? I mean, I don't want to see a situation where I remember when the Quakes play against the Galaxy in Stanford in September one year because they couldn't host it in the usual day at the last week of June because of the stadium lights not working because of electricity problem. I remember that was the game where I can clearly see the football lines, and it's kind of embarrassing to see that when you host a big game like that. So yeah, again, I'm surprised the fact that it's in September, but also I'm interested to see whether or not if the Quakes move this game to Levi's in May as well. Now, keep in mind that game is going to be on a Wednesday as well. That game is actually right after the Minnesota game as well. So literally, both of my team is going to be playing against Inter Miami on a back to back. That should be very interesting to see Messi and friends face off against my team on pretty much on a back to back. And it's also interesting to note that whether or not if Messi is going to play, I mean, I'm assuming he's gonna be feature at least with Minnesota and Houston because those are weekend game. But the game against the Quakes is on a Wednesday, and knowing that after the game that Inter Miami play against the Quakes, they play against Orlando City in a big rivalry game, and especially you're traveling across the other side of the country on a short week. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Messi will show up there. I mean, his friends probably will be there, but certainly the showcase piece is yeah, that could be a big question, and this is why I think I'm definitely probably gonna hold off in terms of buying tickets to go to watch Inter Miami versus the Quakes because I think the tickets are going to be really expensive if it is going to be at PayPal Park. But if there is a case where it feels like Messi might not play in the game and we might not even know before game time, so I might be taking some risks in terms of paying a huge amount of money to see the goal playing there when it turns out he isn't going to play after all. Again, it's gonna be interesting thing to see, but there's no doubt. I mean Minnesota and Houston, those two teams most likely is gonna get to see Messi, except if he does, of course, not get injured. Which again, knock on wood on that definitely. Now, moving on, we got Columbus. Speaking of Messi and friends, they will play against Inter Miami in Cleveland in April. Now, this is I already mentioned this in the last News of the Week episode, but this is just kind of a quick reminder if you didn't watch my News of the Week episode yesterday. And of course, I mentioned it's been received a lot of backlash, especially from True fan. Not happy the fact that they sacrificed. I know it's technically a home game for them, but it kind of doesn't really feel like it with the way that Cleveland is nowhere near Columbus. It's like a 2 hour drive according to some crew fans, and yeah, that's a pretty long drive. If I'm not mistaken, and that it just also feel like it's kind of a money grabbing kind of event rather than them potentially hosting a big game against a good opponent. And it's also a marquee matchup too, because anytime when we see Columbus and Inter Miami, it always felt like it's kind of like an MLS Cup kind of vibe of game in the regular season. So to have that kind of showcase event taking place in Cleveland instead of once again at Lower Doggone Field where it should be, yeah, I can understand the black backlash and the frustration that crew fans and even their supporter group dealt with. Now, speaking of MLS Cup, the rematch of MLS Cup will be taking place on May 10th when the LA Galaxy is going to be taking on the New York Red Bulls, but this time it's going to be at Red Bull Arena instead of at the Indy Health Sports Park. So that should be very interesting to see. I mean, we've seen before where a rematch of MLS Cup doesn't always have to take place at a the site that the MLS Cup final takes place. In fact, last year I think when we saw the rematch between Columbus and LAFC, that was at BMO Stadium as well. More times or not, it feels like we see the team that hosts the rematch is going to be taking place at the other stadium as well, and this of course is the case as well. And then rivalry week, of course, will be happening on May 14th to the 18th. So this is where we see the biggest rivalry in MLS that is going to happen between them. And then there also will be a pause to the season between June 15th to the 24th for the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup break. But most importantly, there's no pause for the Leeds Cup this year. Now, from what I heard in terms of the format, it feels like the Leeds Cup are going to be playing a lot of their games in the middle of the week, something similar what we see with the U.S. Open Cup. Though the question with that is, will they of course make it work? Consider I don't know if the U.S. Open Cup also plays some of their knockout game around the window that the Leagues Cup, of course, has had. But most importantly, it feels like the league has worked out a way to decided to continue the season, even though the Leagues Cup is happening, and that just kind of makes you wonder. It just feels like this competition is now even more irrelevant than it is because if you're an MLS head coach, I mean you're already kind of frustrating the fact that you could have a situation playing in the Leagues Cup and you're out after two games. You have a long period before you can restart the season. But the other thing now is the fact that you are really going to have to balance in terms of competition, and especially with the way that I've heard, there's reports saying that the Leagues Cup could be going with a similar format that we see the UEFA Champions League and the Europa League is going with the Swiss model as well. That adds more games. It is, and we already know that coaches and players they're absolutely frustrated in terms of how many games that they have to play this season on limited roster as what we see in MLS right now, and I just feel like this doesn't really give them do any favor to any team. And also, again, it just kind of makes you think that teams are absolutely now not really going to take the Leeds Cup serious whatsoever. I mean, before when they had the breaks from the regular season, teams pretty much had to take it serious because that's kind of the only competitive game that they have. But now that it is not the case, and unless you if your season is not going well and you're treating the Leeds Cup and putting that all in one egg in the basket, it just feels like it started to becoming like almost like the U.S. Open Cup, where we see some teams don't take the U.S. Open Cup seriously as well. And again, there's a reason why there's a lot of people have also said that they do not want to see the Leeds Cup. The Leeds Cup is a very silly competition. It's a cash cow competition, and it's a competition that probably should be abolished in the near future. Now, the MLS All Star Game will be played in Austin next year. Of course, we know that. It's going to be taking place around the same time as the last All Star Game in Columbus. It's going to be happening on July 23rd. I'm assuming this game is going to be at night. I mean, there is no way in hell they're going to play this game in the daytime, and I also won't be surprised. It might be late into to the nighttime too, because there is no way you can play an MLS All Star game. Like know last year, the MLS All Star game started at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but then it got kind of delayed because of the debate that was going on. I'm assuming this is going to be similar. It's probably going to be pushed to it's probably going to be an 8 p.m. kickoff or something similar to that, because again, you cannot simply host an all-star game in the middle of the summer in Austin in that kind of heat. It literally with a 7 p.m. kickoff or even earlier than that. And mind you, there's no way they're gonna play that game at daytime, because playing day games in the Texas heat is pretty much a death sentence, and it feels more of a cruel and unusual punishment to the players than it should be. And then, of course, decision day will be happening in October 18th, and the time slot for the decision day is going to be same thing as we see in the last couple of years. It's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific for the Eastern Conference team, and then for the Western Conference team, it's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And I also saw some of the decision day matchup. Some of these decision day matchup are very similar to some of the ones that we've seen a couple of years ago. So I wonder whether or not if the schedule maker, when they make the schedule, they kind of just feel exhausted making the schedule, and they say, well, let's just copy and paste some of the matchup we've seen a couple of years and basically slap it onto this year as well. And again, that maybe kind of also explain why the schedule is released relatively early. It feels like maybe they kind of rushed it a little bit, and they just thought, forget about what we see with the decision that they match up and some of the importance. Because I think last year, I think what they were trying to do with decision day was trying to make those big rivalry games happening on decision day, and in some way, some of them of course worked out, but some of them just kind of didn't really work out, because it's always odd to have rivalry game in the last game of the season. Consider you could have one team that pretty much have nothing to play for against a team that have also pretty much clinched the playoffs, and it's just kind of almost like a meaningless game. I mean, you're basically taking a lot of risk, hoping that that game actually means a lot and it creates that rivalry flavor. But more times than not, it just does not work out like that. And then finally, in terms of the format this season of each team, how they're going to be playing throughout the 34 game regular season. So each team will be playing their conference opponent twice. Once is going to be at home, and once is going to be on the road. And they also will be playing six different cross conference teams. So what's different from this year compared to previous year is that it feels like the schedule is a little bit more balanced. I mean, it is still kind of a you know unbalanced with the way that there's only six cross conference teams that each of the team are going to play. But it's not like last year or the previous year where there's a chance where you might be playing the same team three times, and you might be playing six or seven cross conference team depending on your schedule as well. So again, it feels like there's more balance in terms of that, and I think this is a better format compared to previous season. But that's mainly due to the size of this league with the way that San Diego coming into this season, being the 30th team, it allows the league to have this kind of format. But I won't be surprised they might change it again with the way that if a 31st and 32nd team would introduce, and I also won't be surprised whether they might even add some regular season game. I mean, 34 games. I do think that that's kind of not as much as what we see in other league. I mean, I know 34 games we see that in the Bundesliga, but I think in the Premier League they played 38 games, and the same goes for Serie A as well. I wonder whether or not they can expand that, especially with the way that more teams is going to be potentially coming into the league in the near future as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me looking at the schedule and some notable notes that I found out in terms of the schedule being released. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also let me know in the comments below how excited you are for the 2025 MLS regular season. I'm definitely very pumped about that, especially finding out that both of my team gets to play against Inter Miami, and yeah, again, it feels like it's kind of almost a surreal experience. I was hoping one of my team was gonna get it, but to see both of my team to do it, and especially it's a back to back as well. I would have never imagined I would be seeing Inter Miami twice and seeing Messi and friends play twice. I mean, I'm still blessed the fact that I was able to watch them play live back in September when they faced against Charlotte as well, and even more blessed seeing Messi, of course, scoring the goal in that game as well. But yeah, this is gonna be this is something that I didn't expect to happen. Where both of my team that I root for gets to play against Inter Miami, and not to mention I'm already thinking of some ideas of some road trip and away days I might be going, whether from both Minnesota or the Quakes, most likely for Minnesota as well. I know both of my team. I think Minnesota play against the Quakes at PayPal relatively early this season. I think it's like March that they of course play, and then the other matchup. I think that one's a little bit later in the season. But either way, as I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.